why the hell are the Cleveland Browns keeping Hue Jackson? Hue Jackson might be one of the worst head coaches in NFL history. He's definitely up there, and my God, this guy sucks. Like, he really, really sucks. And you can look at the Browns. Roster wise, the Browns might not be stellar, but there's talent there. There's a lot of high draft picks here and there. There's a lot of speed. There's a lot of athleticism, a lot of strength, and all that. So you got plenty of that. And this Hue Jackson is supposed to be a offensive genius, a quarterback guru. Isn't that whatsoever? This guy, even when you look at his resume, it's not even that impressive. I mean, I think the one thing he did was he was the quarterbacks coach for the Ravens in 2008 for Joe Flacco's rookie year. Joe Flacco rookie year, is that really that stellar? It's not. Like, if you look at his resume, he's really not that good. I guess he's good at coaching receivers and whatnot, but other than that, just not impressive on a resume. And the one of the benchmarks to look at, besides the Cleveland Browns, because it definitely sucks, I guess, was his 8-8 season in 2011 with the Raiders. Yes, that was him. It's the year Al Davis unfortunately passed away, and that's where his deformed version of John Gruden. Yes, there's an uglier version of John Gruden known as Mark Davis who took over, and he had this Hue Jackson. And when you watch his offense, and it just is not an NFL offense. It just doesn't set up anything. And if you want to know something about NFL offenses, I'm going to quote right here. I'm quoting Makarov from Call of Modern Warfare 3. All warfare is based on deception. I know it's really a quote on Sun Tzu, all you history nerds out there, but in Call of Duty that was one of Makarov's quotes from the opening Call of Modern Warfare 3, if you remember that. But basically, to get back on track, what I mean by all warfare is based on deception, I mean you have to set up things. You have to do one thing, and then you do one play to set up another play. So to explain this, for instance, would be a power run team. I guess you'd run it up the middle, and if you run it up the middle, you might get a man coverage. And if you keep running with success, and then eventually they're going to play man, and maybe if they're stopping you a little bit, you do, like, I don't know, a flag route with the tight end, because that's good against man coverage or something like that. So you run it on zone coverage, and then throw it on man coverage. That's a really, really simplistic form, but basically you're supposed to set up stuff. When I look at Hue Jackson's offense, I wanted to define it almost as a spread offense, but it's not exactly quite that. It's a little bit like that, but ideally to define it, it's an offense in which it incorporates a lot of different offenses. That might sound great and all, but there's absolutely no identity with this offense besides that it's freaking stupid. Okay, the only identity about it is stupid as hell. And I'll get to some of the other things later, but just to talk about the offense, it's a horizontal offense. So similar to the West Coast offense, it's also called the horizontal offense, whatever you want to do. But you basically run routes that run horizontally, and then you try to throw the ball deep along vertical outside routes. Usually in a traditional West Coast offense, you might want to throw deep in the middle of the field and all that, but they really force the deep ball right here. And when they run the ball, they use all these weird offensive line formation, like a lot of traps, a lot of pulls to try to force it because they have smaller offensive linemen. So what they do is they try to get a lot of double teams here and there and try to get that advantage because they have smaller O-line. And on very crucial parts of the game, so red zone, third down, or if they're endangered of getting a safety or something like that, if they're back in their own end zone, they use some sort of trickery. So they use some sort of end around, some weird trick play. You might have seen those wide receiver screens where they have like 4 wide receivers lined up. They only have 3 offensive linemen. They do a lot of that kind of stuff. And they do all this trickery play. And then, like, damn, they run a lot of trick plays. I'm like, that's not how NFL offenses are supposed to be used. You use a trick play like once in a million years. That's when you use a trick play. And when it comes to Hue Jackson, he's usually a trick play like 3 times a game. He's usually a ton of trick plays or just end arounds, which is not really a trick play, but he does all this fancy, smashy stuff. I'm like, why the hell he's doing it? Oh, that's right. He doesn't set up anything. They just run an offense. Since it has all these different forms of offense, the offense has no identity, so it just doesn't set up anything. It just really just does not set up anything about him. The only reason why Hue Jackson's employed is because of his charisma. I guess he's charismatic, okay, sure, but I don't really care. I don't think charisma determines whether you're a good coach or not. I mean, if you look at the coaches throughout NFL history, not there's some ones that are great that were charismatic, but there's some that are not charismatic at all. Some of the Bill Belichick. I don't think Bill Belichick's charismatic at all, and he's a phenomenal coach. And if you look at Chuck Noll's not charismatic. He was a phenomenal coach. So there might be some charismatic. I think Blair Walsh had some charisma with him, but I mean, he was a great coach. So it doesn't really determine whether you're a great coach or not. And when you look at Hue Jackson, he's not a quarterback whisperer whatsoever. DeShone Kizer, there's one thing to throw more picks than touchdowns. And some quarterbacks who are historically good, they have a year like that. A lot less in the modern era, but some good quarterbacks have that, like Eli Manning. Obviously, he's not really that good anymore, but there was a time where he would throw more interceptions and picks. I think Philip Rivers went for the same trend and all that happens. Well, it's one thing to throw a little bit more, like maybe like 2, 3, or 4 more. DeShone Kizer has thrown more than, like, I think he has 6 touchdowns and 15 interceptions. That is putrid. I want to barf when I see that. When I see that, I have to hold it in. I'm basically, when I watch DeShone Kizer, I just want to die, okay? I just want to die. And that's not against Kizer. That's against Jackson right there. And how the hell do you throw more than twice as many interceptions than touchdowns? And Kizer has played for a while. So if you look at it, 6 touchdowns for 15 interceptions. I mean, Kizer has started all year round. So, yeah, it's not that great. And when I look at Hue Jackson, they're like, oh, we need to fire the GM. I'm like, what's the problem with fire the GM when your coach runs a stupid-ass system which he can't even run? It is garbage, and I don't know why the hell he's going to 2018. When I saw the things where you put in Peyton Manning as the one of the GMs, the executive, which makes a lot of sense because Bill Polian was obviously a very influential person throughout his career, winning his first Super Bowl, being a great general manager, and then John Elway, who was a Hall of Fame quarterback who moved into the GM spot and took the Broncos to the promised land with Peyton Manning. But it makes sense. And then bringing John Harbaugh in for the Browns. I mean, some people don't really like Harbaugh, and Harbaugh does got his fair share of criticism and all that. But you put in Harbaugh right here, you're talking about he's the second best coach in the NFL if he gets hired by the Browns as of today. I'm dead serious. You just put him right in there. Second best coach. I think same thing with Nick Saban. You put Nick Saban in here, it's the second best. Obviously, Nick Saban's not going to leave and all that. John Harbaugh's most likely to. And John Harbaugh and I think Peyton Manning do know each other because Harbaugh was a Colts quarterback back in the 90s and whatnot. And I think that would definitely be good. I'm like, wow, this looks like something good. But no, they decided to be the same old Browns and keep Hue Jackson for 1 year. This guy is 1-27. This guy sucks. I mean, it is absolutely awful. And it's not the GM's fault. You just run a stupid offense. It is such a stupid offense. Oh my Lord, when I watch it, it's just, there's just no rhythm. There's no identity with it. It's just, okay, we'll do this here, then we do that here. No, you have to have an identity to it. Sure, it's good to do some other things here and there, but you got to stick to one identity. And this offense clearly does not have that. And I think there was a time where Hue Jackson got a team to 8-8. I'm like, how the hell did Hue Jackson get a team to an 8-8? So I was looking at the 2011 Raiders, and I actually watched a full game of just the Raiders offense. And apparently it was a pretty competitive game. It was against the Lions. It was back in 2011. Hey, it's on YouTube if you want to look at it. It's 2 hours long, so if you have 2 hours to kill, I guess that's something to do. And then you have like a bunch of these games that they're either from NFL Network or just from some small YouTube channel. I know like one guy named Bart Simpson. Yeah, he's named after the cartoon character and all that we all love. But you can just go on there and watch it. And I was watching it, and I decided to look at their team. And roster-wise, the average age of the roster was 32 years old. So you had NFL veterans who knew what they were doing, some guys who had a lot of experience under their belt. For instance, they traded for Carson Palmer during the midseason for 2 first-round picks. It's definitely a very hefty price tag for Carson Palmer, for a guy who was basically retired from that point on for the season. And then the average age of the roster was 32. They had Richard Seymour, I think, if you probably remember that name. So yeah, not the youngest team in the world. And that's when they had Darius Bay. Darren McFadden was doing real well. I guess the one highlight with Hue Jackson is I guess he might be good with receivers. I think Hayward Bay had his best season and whatnot. I mean, they just kind of forced him the ball. Nothing really that spectacular and all that. But you basically had NFL veterans on that. Because if you look at the average age, it was like 32 something, or maybe 33. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, why is this working out with having veterans on the roster compared to the Browns, who I believe have the youngest roster in the NFL at the age of 24, believe it or not. Man, that's a young roster, or it might even be younger than 24, maybe 22, but I think I'm stretching there. I think it's 24. And I'm thinking, why does NFL veterans impact how successful Hue Jackson is? I'm like, oh, it makes sense because he runs all these different concepts of all these offenses and whatnot, that if you bring a guy like Carson Palmer, who's probably been through a ton of different OCs, even at the time of 2011, that he's been through so many different types of offenses, and he's been doing through all this, that you kind of get, it's like, okay, there's some concepts of the vertical offense, some concepts of the West Coast offense, and some concepts of power. It's like, yeah, he's been familiar, so you can put that up. Now let's go into DeShone Kizer's shoes for a moment. Just go in there for DeShone Kizer. This guy played at Notre Dame. Notre Dame, I mean, they did produce Joe Montana a long time ago. Yes, I know that. But as of recently, not really a quarterback powerhouse. And when I remember watching from DeShone Kizer in college, I wasn't really that big. My player comparison for him was quite lazy. I don't even think I did a video on him. It was a waste of time. And apparently he won the starting job for the Browns. But, I mean, that's not saying much. Was RG3. I'm like, okay, this is just not that impressive whatsoever. And this guy's all he's doing is throw the ball deep. Hue Jackson likes to throw the ball short. You try to put a guy that's a deep ball thrower and try to get him into that right away, it's not going to work out that much. I mean, the Browns' best game was week 1, and it's gone downhill from there. It's just self-proof of that. And back to the 2011 Raiders, they had like Carson Palmer and all that, and for some reason, Hue Jackson, he has this offense where it has all this great speed, just great speed. You had back in his 2011, you had Jacoby Ford, who was a kickoff returner, had some success there. Darius Bay was hell of a speedster. He might not be good at all. He's just really just a depth piece that the Steelers have, but he has Julio Jones kind of like talent. So just to put that in perspective, and then they had this guy named Moore, who was also a speedster. So they had a ton of fast guys, and also Darren McFadden ran a 4.3. So you had a ton of fast guys on here. For some reason, no matter what quarterback they do, always overthrow the ball. They all just overthrow the ball all the time. Like DeShone Kizer had a wide open guy against the Chargers, just overthrew it. For some stupid reason, you just keep on overthrowing it. And I'm just looking at the system. Listen, look, I guess it's ambitious, I guess it's creative, but when you try to incorporate all these different concepts in there, you just kind of look at them like the only way this would work unless you had Aaron Rodgers, Julio Jones, Ezekiel Elliott, just a great player. Oh yeah, there's some great offensive line. I mean, like it's too reliant on all this fantastic talent that I'm like, you're not gonna pull this off. And I'm not just talking about athleticism. I'm talking about like just pinpoint technique, accuracy, and all that. I think it's putting too much pressure on the players. And these players, they need to be nourished. They need to be trained. And you're just throwing them in here this stupid offense that Kizer probably just really threw the ball deep at Notre Dame, and now he's here in Cleveland. He's doing all this like funky stuff. It's like, what the hell is this guy doing? There's no reason why he has a ratio that's not even as bad as 1-to-2 touchdown interception. Not 2-to-1, 1-to-2. It is that bad. It's worse than a 1-to-2. 6 to 15. That is terrible. Or you could say a 2 to 5 touchdown to interception ratio. That's awful. That is absolutely putrid. And I'm saying, well, I'm not all about the stats here, but when I look at that, I can't sit there. I'm looking out here. I'm like, I would rather be eating shit than watch Deshaun Kaiser play under Hue Jackson. Okay, it's awful. It's absolutely horrendous. And then Hue Jackson, just to top it off, he's only an offensive coordinator. He only focuses on the offense. Defense, he gives to Greg Williams, who just sucks himself. I mean, Jabril Peppers, who isn't really that much of a speedster, making him play center fielder, playing him deep off coverage. He really should be the eighth man. He should be the eighth guy in the box right there. Put him there for run support. That's really what you got to put Jabril there for, just to be a linebacker safety hybrid or something like that. That's really what you need. Not to do what Ed Reed does and play center field. Obviously, there's plenty of other safeties out there that are not as nearly as good as Ed Reed that plays center field, like Adrian Amos and all that. But you get my drift, though. And I'm just looking at the 2011 Raiders, and you look at that. I'm like, okay, this team, it has an older roster, and then I put another piece to the puzzle. They played in the AFC West. Now let's go back in time. Let's be Marty McFly, go into the DeLorean, and let's go back to 2011. AFC West. All right, let's look at the quarterbacks in that just in that fellow division. Kyle Orton was the starter at the beginning, so he got cut for Tim Tebow. We got Tebow time. You had that huge meltdown between Matt Castle and Todd Haley. Todd Haley gets fired, becomes the OC of the Steelers, and then Chiefs start Tyler Packle, if you remember him. Tyler Packle, I don't even care. He sucked. That's all you need to know. And they're running Wildcat under Tyler Packle, and he wasn't even that good. They would line up. Well, he wouldn't be the guy getting the direct snap from it. He would line up as wide receiver in some corny thing like that. And then you had the Chargers, who had Phillip Rivers, who isn't bad, but then you had, I don't believe it was Norv Turner at the time, or it might have been Norv Turner, who was kind of on his last legs, but the Chargers weren't great, and the Broncos won that division 8-8. I'm like, the AFC West blew, and I mean, it freaking blew. Like, all those teams pretty much had bad defenses and all that, so that's the only reason why it worked. And then I think Hue Jackson got a little bit crazy after Darren McFadden and Jason Campbell went down. Traded 2 first-round picks for Carson Palmer, and then he gets fired. It's like, you destroyed farm system, their draft, the next 2 years. And they already gave up their first-round pick for Richard Seymour for a trade they made 2 years earlier and whatnot. But when I look at that, they don't got any draft picks for 3 years. They destroyed it. They get Carson Palmer, and then Hue Jackson just gets taken out of the picture. Just completely gets taken out of the picture. And I'm just watching, I'm like, what the hell's going on right here? And then instead of adjusting or changing things out, he keeps running the same crap that he keeps on running over and over again. I'm like, Hue Jackson, you freaking suck. And at the time in 2011, I was a little bit confused. I'm like, okay, a guy that goes 8-8, 7-9, whatever the hell the record was, it was roughly around 500. When I was looking at that record, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, oh, it's a little bit surprising why you'd fire a coach that goes 8-8. I mean, you might as well keep him and give him another shot. At that time, though, I was a naive fool. I was a absolute idiot when looking back at it. Because now, when I look at their offense, about how they have all these different concepts and then must-do situations, they run all these trick plays, or not even trick plays, plays that are just they're just to fool you. Like an end around's not really a trick play, but it's kind of isn't fool you. They run all these stupid weapons. I'm like, what the hell is this? What the hell is this? There's no way in hell. Whatever happens to Hue Jackson, okay? Let's just say he gets fired one day, because it ain't. He's the starting head coach for 2018, but he should probably step down if I was him. The only way he would get on would probably be the running backs coach of some team or whatnot. But I'm watching. I'm like, you just can't have all these different elements from offenses because there's no identity and all that. And then you run all these trick plays, and then they fire Shashi Brown, whatever his name is. I mean, it's not his fault. I mean, they got all these draft picks and all that, and then personnel that are like, oh, it's his problem. I'm like, well, you got all these picks, and Myles Garrett was a good first overall pick. I mean, sure, maybe Deshaun Watson might have been better, but Myles Garrett at the time was a slam dunk first overall pick. So they had like three high draft picks and whatnot, and they fire him and not Hue Jackson. I mean, this is the same old Browns. Or trust me, with a lot of people just remember the Browns made the playoffs in around 2002, around 2003. I want to say 2002 they made the playoffs. So I mean, the Browns have consistently been bad, but like I don't see a win for the rest of the year. I don't. They're gonna play. I think the Bengals and the Steelers and the Ravens. It's all divisional stuff, and I think they're just gonna get the Browns should crap on them. I mean, they could get one win. I mean, I never usually, but right now I don't see a victory right here. And you're going to keep Hue Jackson out of your freaking mind. And just to top it off, why the hell are you running analytics in football? I mean, listen, look, they're running the Moneyball strategy. If you don't know what Moneyball is, there's a movie that came out in 2011, and ideally it stars Brad Pitt and then Jonah Hill's in there. If you like baseball, you'll like the movie. If you don't like baseball, don't even bother. But it's not a bad movie. But the Moneyball tactic, it's pretty straightforward. The reason why it's there is because in baseball there's no cap. So you're going to have some teams like the Yankees who can spend oodles and oodles and oodles of money on any player that they want. And even if they, let's just say they mess up on one side, they could still do well out there. Versus the Athletics, which is the team Billy Beane's the GM on, and that's who Brad Pitt depicts in the movie. What happens is he basically runs a strategy where, since the Athletics, they don't have that much money, where you have to have a bargain bit team. So to put that in perspective, he's only going to pay for like necessity or things that are absolutely important. So for instance, he has this player named Johnny Damon, really popular leadoff hitter and whatnot. But the issue is, Billy Beane looks at it, he's just like, well, sure, his offensive numbers are good and all that, but his OPS isn't really that great. And the thing is, since he's very known for stolen bases and all that, stolen bases is really that important. So we're just going to have to let him go. So ideally how the Moneyball strategy works is it's a cheap strategy. You focus on certain statistics that matter and certain statistics that don't matter, and then you try to build a team right that way. You try to create the most like cost-effective team as possible. Okay, the reason why the Moneyball strategy is in baseball and is used by the Athletics is because there's a great disparity when it becomes with teams that have absolutely no money, the Athletics and the Padres, versus the teams that have a ton of money, like the Red Sox and the Yankees. There's a great disparity. In the football, you have a cap. There's only so much money you can freaking spend in there. So that's why you don't really need to run the Moneyball strategy. You really don't. And sure, I kind of like the idea where Moneyball, there's certain statistics that matter, some statistics that really don't matter in football, I think. So if you just put that into the number cruncher and whatnot. But with the Moneyball, it's really about building a bargain bit, cost-effective team. Like, was that ever a problem with the Cleveland Browns? I don't think it, or probably with any team. I mean, in the NFL, you just teams start off with the same number, and then based on how much they spend on certain players here and there is what they get. So to put that in perspective, the Moneyball strategy, it's called the Moneyball strategy because it's about being cost effective, not exactly trying to get like certain players that run like a certain style of offense or anything. And no, it's none of that. So overall, I've been ranting about the Cleveland Browns forever right now, but Hue Jackson, you freaking suck. You suck so much that for some reason your charisma has kept you there as a coach. This is absolutely astounding. And when the Browns hired him the first time, I'm like, this is stupid. No, the reason why you run so many trick plays is because your offense doesn't freaking work. There's no setup for anything. And I just think that's so idiotically stupid. The only reason why you had success with the Raiders was because, one, you played in a weak division, and two, you had veterans on your roster where you can just basically be like, look, I have all these different concepts for the offense, so you can have a guy like Carson Palmer who's been under a ton of OCs to run it, or Jason Campbell's been under a ton of OCs and work it, versus Deshaun Kaiser who's probably played with one offense his entire career, his entire football career. Hell, if you look at him in college, he didn't run even that advanced stuff. I'm just looking at this. It's just so freaking stupid. And the guy, he has no defensive input. He has no clue what he's doing on defense. Absolutely no clue. I think to be a good coach in the league, you got to understand a little bit about offense and a little bit about defense. I mean, John Harbaugh, man, he might not have been a great offensive mind, and a lot of people have railed him on that. But when you look at him offensively, I thought out at that time, and 2011, up to that point, between 2005 or 2004, I think Alex Smith was drafted in 2004 to 2011. 2011 was Alex Smith's best year. I mean, the offense was efficient. I mean, you had, what's his name? David Akers break Jerry Rice's point record in a single season. So there was production there. Vernon Davis felt a little bit revived. He felt like there was something there. John Harbaugh wasn't a great offensive mind, but he at least had somewhat of a clue. There was something there. And I think you still kept him there. There would have been a little bit something there and all that. Excuse me. But when it comes to this and all that, Hue Jackson. I'm getting sick of talking about Hue Jackson. I'm literally becoming ill because of Hue Jackson. He's absolute crap that this guy's here. This guy is not an NFL head coach. It's just so stupid. Cleveland, they have a great opportunity to succeed, but the fact that they won't make an obvious fire is the reason why they will be in the shitter in 2018 once again.